welcome to Katrina's Creations. This is our Wednesday episode, and today we are going to be doing a mitered square tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to show you what a mitered square blanket looks like. I have made, one is complete, I've made one that I'm now working on, and so I'm going to show you both of them because you can make either version with this tutorial. So here are the two different mitered square blankets that I have made. This is the first one and it is finished, and this one I did every other square is speckled or striped and every other square is solid. But more importantly, you can notice that all of the miters run the same direction all the way across. They all run from left to right, this direction, throughout the entire blanket. And there is the dog. Every time I turn the camera on, she decides she needs a drink of water. Right, Cricket? Yeah. Now here's the second mitered square blanket, the one I am currently working on. This one I am just using random colors, but on this one you can see that the miters start from a center point and they run out. So there you can see how they kind of go out in an X shape. So the only difference between these two blankets is how the mitered squares are attached. The square itself is done the same way, but where the spine of the square goes in different directions, it affects how you attach it to the blanket. Now to make the square, no matter which version of the mitered square that you make, you have to start with your initial square. Now supplies you are going to need, the blankets I have are made with fingering weight. So if you are using fingering weight, you are going to want to use a knitting needle. I use the little short ones, but you can use straight knitting needles, whichever works for you. You are going to want to use like a US size 6, which is a 4mm needle. And the other thing you will need, of course, is scrap yarn and a crochet hook for picking up stitches. Doesn't make any difference what size the crochet hook is. This one is a size F. So, I mean, you don't want to use a huge one, but just general pickup for picking up stitches. So let's get started. I am going to be demonstrating this using worsted weight. Now you could make this blanket using any weight of yarn. You just need to adjust the needle size accordingly. So for using worsted weight, I am using US size 8, which I believe are 6mm. And so for demonstration purposes, I figured these would be a little bit easier. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is cast on 35 stitches. Now you can make the squares bigger or smaller. The main thing is you do need to have an odd number of stitches. So in this case, for the fingering weight size, I am doing a 35, so I just kept it the same for my worsted weight. And you are going to begin by knitting the first 17 stitches. And you may be looking at this going, how does this turn into a square? You're not actually knitting straight up this way. You are going to knit to a center point, and then you're going to create what is the miter, or it acts like a zipper that's going to zip the square up and pull it in and form the square. So we're going to begin. So we are going to knit the first 16 stitches. I've now knit 16 stitches. So I have the 17th, the 18th stitch right here is my actual center stitch, but our decrease takes place with the middle 3 stitches. So stitch 17, 18, and 19. And what you're going to do, remember this is your center, you're going to slip these 2 stitches, you're going to knit the 3rd stitch, and then you're going to take and pick up these 2 stitches and slip them over the top. So it is a slip, 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 knit. And then you're going to knit the remaining 16 stitches. I've now completed my first row, and you can see right here is where the slip, slip, knit is. So now I'm going to, this is my right side, so I'm going to turn this around, and I am going to knit 16 stitches until I get where that center decrease is, where the slip, slip, knit is, and that stitch I'm going to purl, and then I will knit the remainder of my way across. I have now gone all the way across on the wrong side, and here is where I purled my stitch in the center. I'm now going to turn back over to the right side again, and you can see where a point is starting to form where the mitered stitch is occurring, where it's a decrease and it's causing the miter to occur. So this time I'm going to knit, if you remember we did 16 last time, this time we're going to do 15 until we get to the middle 3 stitches where we will do slip, slip, knit again. I'm now at that 15th stitch. This is my center stitch right here. You can see where the decrease took place. So this is the stitch on either side of the center stitch. So I'm going to slip these 2 over to the right needle, knit, and then pass these 2 stitches over the top. So we have done a decrease on each side, and now I'm going to knit the remaining 15 stitches on this side. We've now completed the stitches on that side, and you are really starting to be able to see where the miter is occurring right here. So we're going to turn it over to the wrong side, and we are going to knit 15 stitches. We will purl when we get to that center stitch and then knit the rest of the way across. I've now gone all the way across on the wrong side, and there you can see the point, which is the corner of our square. We will again turn to the right side, and this is going to be the last row I'm going to actually show you because it's fairly simple, it's repetitive. We did 15 stitches to the center. This time we will do 14 stitches to the center 3 stitches here. I am at my center 3 stitches. You can see the center right here. And I do know this is a little fuzzy. I did buy an adapter for my camera, but it is not in yet. So hopefully the next tutorial the stitches will be a little clearer. But here is my center stitch. This is the stitch on each side. So again, I will slip these 2 stitches to the right needle, knit, and pick up those 2 stitches and pass them over the top. And there's the next miter. So I would continue on with knitting the remainder of these 14 stitches, and then on the wrong side I would knit 14 stitches, purl the center, and then knit the other 14. So each row will continually get shorter, so then you would go 13, 12, and so on, until you reach the last row where you would have 3 stitches, and your last the last row would be slip 2 stitches, knit 1, pass it over, and then you have just your last stitch, which you would just tie off. So let me show you how you put them together to actually form the blanket. Now this is the standard mitered square blanket where all of the miters go the same direction. The first square that you are going to do is going to be just as I just showed you, where you're doing it all by itself. And you're going to start in what will become the bottom left-hand corner. With this particular pattern, you are always going to be working from the left to the right. And when you start your next row, you will start back at the top of your left square and work across. Now you attach these as you go. Now you may be looking at this and going, well, how do you do that? You are going to, here would be your first square, which is not attached to anything. But when you would get ready to do your second square, you want to pay attention to how the miters are attached. And I'm holding it upside down. Alright, got it turned around the correct way now because I realized I was holding it upside down, which is a little difficult to demonstrate for you. So here's my very first square, and it would have stood alone. But when I added my second square, which would be here, I would be picking up 17 stitches along the edge. Now I have attached an I-cord edge to this, because this is a finished blanket. So I would be picking up, and this is not a hole right there, that is some of this dark speckling. But anyway, I would pick up 17 stitches here. This corner would be my 18th or center stitch, and then I would cast on an additional, onto my needles, an additional 17 stitches. That would give me my 35 stitches, and then I would proceed making the square the same as I made this one. And then when I would get to the next square, I would be doing the same thing. I would be picking up 17 stitches along this side. The 18th or center stitch is right here, and then I would cast on an additional 17 stitches. And you would continue doing that until you get the blanket as wide as you want. When you come back to do your second row, you would be starting again all the way to the left on top of your original square. So here's your original square. And this time you have a base here that you'd be picking up the stitches. So you would cast on 17 stitches. This is your 18th, and then you would add 17 coming across here, and this would form your miter. And you again would start and repeating that same action all the way across, and throughout your each row of the blankets would start that same way. So that's how to do a traditional one. Now the blanket I'm working on currently, as you can see, the miters run different directions. So you're going to attach your squares, but you're going to be doing them in a little different order. Instead of starting from the left corner, you're going to start in the middle. In the middle of a row, there is 2 squares where the miters come in and form a V. And that goes all the way down here to the actual center of the blanket, where you can see the miters run this direction, this direction, this direction, and this direction. So I am right at the beginning of a row here. Well, I'm actually partway through a row. So I'll show you what I do. I start in the center of the row, where the V forms between the 2 squares, and I cast on 17 stitches. This is my 18th stitch here, and then I picked up 17 stitches. This is a dark color, so it doesn't show up as well, but there you can see it. And I'll show you the back so you can see what it looks like where the stitches have been picked up. You can't really see a seam. There's no seam or anything like that. So that's how I did the first square. But then by the time I get to the next square, I am literally picking up stitches along this side, and I'm picking up stitches along this side, with this being my 18th or center stitch, and then it's ready to go. And I do that all the way till the end. But now I'm getting ready to go the opposite direction. So what I'm going to be doing is picking up stitches this direction and this direction. Remember, if you look at your square like a V, your miter is going to be at the point of the V. So I will be picking up stitches this direction and this direction. And then I will be doing that same process all the way across to the left. So in a mitered square blanket where it is like the sunburst effect, you are going to start in the middle of a row and work your way out. A traditional one, you will start at the left. On each row, you will start on the left and work your way across. So next I am going to show you how to go and pick up stitches to get started with a block. Okay, here is the area I'm going to be picking up stitches. This is going to be where the miter will occur, right here. This is going to be my 18th stitch, and then this portion coming up here will be the next 17 stitches that I pick up. Now I am using fingering weight for this, so I am using my smaller knitting needles just because I find them a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to use a small crochet hook. I'm going to insert it right at the seam between the two blocks. And I've got just a small slip stitch in the color I'm picking up. I'm going to put that on, pull it through, and slide it onto my needle. And that's my first stitch. I'm going to do the same thing 16 more times and just slide them on. And you just want to make sure that you evenly space the stitches out. I tend to pick there's like a little ridge that's formed from the garter stitch. Let me see if I can find one that shows it really well. Here you can see it really well. I tend to pick it up. If you pull this apart, you can see like little holes right here. That's what I tend to grab, is these little spots. So it's a little harder to see on the speckled yarn, but you can see one right here. And you just pull it through and slide it on. And I'm going to do that until I get 17. Alright, I have 17. Now the 18th one, I want to make sure I get it right where these three colors join. You can see I have one here, here, and here, and this is going to be this fourth one that's coming in, so I want to get it right in the center there. And that's my 18th. And now I'm going to go along the same side here, and I'm going to pick up 17 more. I now have a total of 35 stitches on my needle, with the 18th one being right here, or the center stitch, and I am ready to proceed with the square just like I showed you in the tutorial. Now I did forget to mention that when you're picking up these stitches, you want to have the right side facing you. So you can see the miter is here. This is what the wrong side looks like. It does not have the ridge where the miter is. So you do want to make sure that you're picking up your stitches with the right side facing you, and you're going to be putting the crochet hook through the right side and pulling it from behind. Otherwise you're going to have a seam showing on the back. And these are what the seams look like. I have to weave in all my ends. I'm going to be spending one afternoon doing nothing but weaving in ends. But here you can see what some of the seams look like. Some show up a little bit more so than others if it's a light color against a dark one like here. And then you can see right across here, you can see exactly where I picked up the stitches. That's all there is to it. It really is not a hard process. It's fun. It's a nice, easy way to use up scrap yarn. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.